is Tahir Johnson, NCIA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager, and we're here for a special edition of our Catalyst Conversation series today to talk about why advocacy should be a part of your business model. We have an outstanding panel today of advocacy leaders from around the industry in many different areas. We have Courtney Davis of Marijuana Matters, Michael South of Cresco Labs, Roz McCarthy of Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and this panel will be moderated today by the amazing Tiffany Watkins of Vanguard Media and State Partnership Manager of Old Pal. She's also a new member of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, so I'm so happy to have her here leading this conversation. Tiffany, it's all yours. You take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tahir. Welcome, ladies. How are you today? Yes, I see nothing but smiles.
Hanging in there.
You bet. It's rough out there, right? But we keep trucking along and getting business done like women do. Again, I am Tiffany Watkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Vanguard Media. And what I do is provide a platform for women in the cannabis space. So I am more than grateful to be here with these lovely women of cannabis. I'd like to go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let's start up at the top here with Courtney. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you to Tahir and NCIA for the platform. I'm very happy to be here, like you mentioned, with all of these wonderful women. My name is Courtney Davis. I serve as the Director of Government Relations and Public Affairs for Marijuana Matters, which is a nonprofit that's focused on standardizing social equity in the cannabis industry and the way that it's understood in the public. Our mission is to leverage the potential economic opportunities that the legalized industry presents for communities of color that have faced the brunt of the criminalization of marijuana. We do this by advocating for equitable policies that reduce barriers to entry into the market, from everything from retail license holders to packaging manufacturers, and the many ancillary opportunities that the cannabis industry presents. We have three pillars: advocacy, entrepreneurship, and education. And so I'm happy to talk further about those as we kind of get into our program today. But again, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you very much. Michael, same thing. Tell us about yourself. You're with Cresco.
Hey, everybody. My name is Michael Self, and I am the Vice President of the Social Equity and Educational Development Program, or the SEED program at Cresco Labs. I guess the SEED initiative at Cresco Labs. And the SEED initiative's mission is to develop tangible pathways for people, businesses, and communities that have been negatively impacted by the war on drugs. And similar to what Courtney said, we do that through three pillars. And our three pillars are social or restorative justice, the community business incubator, and an educational and workforce development. And I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about those in depth in a little bit. But we really focus on making sure that Black and Brown people have entree into the cannabis industry, and whether that has to do with interaction with the criminal justice system and expunging records, or through an entrepreneurial avenue by applying for applying for applications for plant touching businesses, or if you want to learn more about the cannabis industry through academia, or have an opportunity to be connected to various jobs through workforce development. My background is in mental health and corrections, and I've worked in lots of different areas of social justice and public health and residential. So I bring all of that to this exciting industry, and I'm really, really excited to be on the team at Cresco and leading this work in social equity. Thank you all so much for having me, and I'm so excited to be sitting on a panel with all beautiful Black women today.
We're equally grateful to have you here. Roz, same question. Roz, we're not hearing you. Maybe check your connection. All right, we'll give her a few minutes to get her connection back in order. I just want to kind of just bridge us into this conversation why advocacy should be an incredible part of your business model. We're all here, Black women representing companies, and we all see, we're all in different areas of the country, and we all see this incredible need for equity and responsibility of businesses to help provide inclusion. So let's start there. Why do you think that we all have to be in this space? You know, there's a million other things that we could be getting done to move our businesses forward, but we're kind of here having this conversation. Tell me your thoughts. Michael, why don't we start with you? Tell me your thoughts in regards to why you think we are sitting here in this position.
I think it's a good question, because certainly we all, have expertise and interests, and, why do we decide to bring that here? And I think for me, it's really about the huge opportunity and the huge space that we have to be able to make real changes to an industry that is been existing for a long time, but in this legal space where people are already in position to take advantage of the benefits of being in the cannabis industry. I think we see the opportunity that if we put certain policies, programs, and practices in place, the cannabis industry could be the beacon for all of corporate America. And we were talking about the tech industry before we started recording, but I think with the social equity provisions that are put in law, with social equity initiatives like we're doing at Cresco, and certainly other organizations are engaged in, the opportunity to really create an industry that has the interests in mind of people that have been overlooked is huge. And I feel like, this was just a real important time to get involved. And, with social justice being something that I'm passionate about, the leap was not, it was just, I felt like the job was made for me. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing,
Right. No, I completely understand that. Looks like we got Roz back. Hi, Roz.
I'm sorry, my computer just went, and I don't know what happened, but sorry about that, ladies. And hi, everybody. Roz McCarthy here with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I'm the founder and the CEO of this nonprofit organization. We are a 501c3, a national organization with 27 chapters throughout the country. Our focus, I founded the company, the organization in 2016. So it feels like dog years. I feel like I've been doing it for a long time. It has been a great, awesome journey. Our focus, very similar to Michael and as well as Courtney, in 4 different areas. We provide the advocacy, outreach, and education as it relates to social equity, social justice, health equity, and public policy. So literally, we've written language that's been adopted in states like Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, supporting, Virginia and some other different states, working in Nevada right now, working in Colorado to put the policy or that people of color from our community have an opportunity to participate in this industry. So I'm excited to be here. I'm so sorry that my internet is a little unstable. I don't know, I'm in Florida, so we have these storms and it gets kind of crazy here. But definitely a part of this panel, happy to be here and happy to share just a little insight from the things that we've seen, how advocacy is so important to be a part of the business model as you are looking to grow your business. So thank you for having me.
Certainly. And I posed a small intro question just to, while you were fixing your connection, which was, we're all here, women, work towards the same goal of equity and inclusion in this industry. And, here we sit. We're here. Why do we think that we're here having this conversation? So I'm gonna let you think about that one because you just got that question. Courtney, I know you heard it before. Tell me your thoughts there, and then we'll circle right back to you, Roz.
Yeah, well, great question. There is no industry that doesn't devote some of its resources to lobbying and advocacy. The cannabis industry is no different. And I think that the cannabis industry is unique because of the issues and its connection to the criminalization of marijuana that has impacted, mostly a specific community, Black and brown communities. And so what we saw were a lot of states that were legalizing and kind of ignoring this social equity conversation. And so what we saw happen in New York is states were saying, hey, you know what, we're not willing to sign on to legalizing cannabis if there aren't these social equity provisions, the restorative justice pieces that a lot of folks in the criminal justice world are more familiar with. And so kind of being able to make the connection between legalization and social equity and restorative justice, I think was something that's really important, which is why advocacy, the holistic approach to advocacy is really important, making sure that you have buy-in from community members, that you're reaching out to your elected officials, advocating for policies that are important to your business so that you don't end up in a situation where things are being, mandates are being created that aren't good for your business, or that you're not able to get off the ground in a particular state because you didn't really read the tea leaves to see what policies needed to be in place in order for legalization to happen.
Yes, agreed. It's so important to exercise your voice within your community for your business, because that's where the true change comes in. True change that's applicable to your environment is to really pay attention to that. So you don't have to, and that was a great way of putting it, you don't have to read the tea leaves. It doesn't have to be a secret. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I will tell you this, like my entry into advocacy, it wasn't like, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm a capitalist, I was consulting, I had my own business, but I saw an industry that was coming into my state that I felt like once I started doing the research on the medical side, my son has sickle cell anemia. My mom passed away from breast cancer in 2005. So when I started looking at the efficacy of this plant from a medical perspective, for me, I was like, man, I didn't know this stuff. I wasn't a consumer. I didn't know. And so as I'm educating myself, and then I'm looking at the economic numbers associated with it, and then I'm looking at the social justice issues of having the disproportionality of Black and brown folks going to prison, I was like this, that ain't cool, that ain't cute. And I know how Florida get down. And so I was like, this ain't getting down like this. And so I try to run from the advocacy part. I want to do the business part. I wanted to do the, explaining this from a healthcare perspective. And then I was looking out for companies and organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League in my local community. And they were not galvanized at the time. They were not, we were, let's just be honest, from a Black and brown perspective, we've been very timid about this industry. And so I'm not someone that's timid. I'm not someone, and let me tell you something, my friends will tell you now, they're like, how are you the weed queen? How, they can't get over. It's like, how did you get into this industry? And I just I thought about it and I was like, just my heart, my spirit told me, like, if I don't advocate for people that look like me, if I can't be a voice of change and I don't see the bigger organizations doing it, somebody has to do it. And literally that's what came into my mind. If I can do this and make this work for Florida, I can go to any other state, because it's always been known where Florida goes from a voting perspective. So the country goes. And so I think now is the opportunity of people not having to look at advocacy as like, oh, I don't want to do that, I don't know how to do it. You don't have to know how. You don't even have to want to do it. It's something that's so really weaved into the business of cannabis right now, because there's some issues that are aligned and associated with cannabis that we have to still deal with. And we are still nowhere near where we need to be to solve those issues. And so for me, it's just a natural progression. And so now I've gone backwards. I started the advocacy first, because normally when you start a business, you normally start a profitable business, you make money, and then you say, okay, I want to give back and I'll start my nonprofit. Well, I went in reverse. So now I'm going the other side and bringing in my for-profit now that my nonprofit has really gathered the strength. But it really was a smart decision. It was a scary decision. It was a decision that maybe I thought I was going to, like, my retirement, all my money. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, I pushed everything. I pushed all the chips in. And I said, Lord, Jesus, like, but he said, this is for you. You got this. And I'm so grateful that thus far it has been the right decision. And I see why if you're listening to us, this advocacy and being able to stand up for those people that don't even know they need to have someone to stand up for them is so important. So that's just my take on it.
And it's a wonderful take. And it's very true. Advocacy is an advocacy for people. And I mean,
Yes.
Almost 30 years ago, I began my advocacy and activism in cannabis. And their sole reason was to bring this plant to the people that needed it, and that people not be criminalized for taking care of their health and wealth the way they needed to. And so I completely understand your standpoint. I absolutely enjoy it. And I believe there's a piece of that in everything that we do. I know for sure it has been in my 3-decade journey through cannabis. It definitely has been a strong part of mine. That being said, let's kind of hop into what it is, the meat and potatoes of what it is that you guys do. Courtney, let's start with you. Tell me about the work that Marijuana Matters does. Tell me a little bit about what it is that makes you guys tick.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, our 3 pillars: advocacy, education, and entrepreneurship. Our advocacy efforts include engaging the community and elected officials on policies and initiatives that kind of will reverse the harm on the war on drugs and are in line with our social equity guiding principles. And so that includes anything from, reaching out to churches and helping them understand the new relationship that we could have with the plant from a health perspective, or helping them understand why they need a voice at the table in this conversation, because these businesses are coming to their communities, and we want to make sure that they're equipped with the tools to advocate for the type of businesses and the type of policies that they want to see in their community. Our education efforts kind of help shape the narrative on what those policies should look like and why we're asking for these specific protocols, like continued oversight on social equity programs as they're being rolled out. The inclusion of people of color on advisory boards for cannabis businesses that will be in your community, and then also advocating for community-based agreements. And so we have our Weed Crush Wednesday podcast, which is on Instagram, where we bring business owners and advocates on to just really give them a platform to talk about the work that they're doing. And there are, a lot of folks who just are desperately need understanding. I'm a product of the DARE environment. And so there are a lot of things that we learned when we were in school that we now need to relearn about a relationship that our communities can have with cannabis. And a lot of folks are willing to kind of, they'll text you on the side and say, hey, my grandmother has gout. She wants to, I heard about this CBD cream or something. And so we like to have all sorts of folks on so that we can just kind of provide a better understanding of how this plant can benefit your community and yourself. We also have a blog. We have an excellent writer who we post our pieces on Medium. It's called the Greenlight blog. And so we hope folks will check that out. And for our entrepreneurship effort, we kind of just help build individuals' capacity as business owners. I was listening to one of Tahir's podcasts the other day with the CEO of the Ball family farm. And Tahir was asking him, how did you he's a successful cannabis owner in Los Angeles County. And he said, how did you get into this industry? And, we have a lot of folks that are part of the legacy industry that have been doing this. They have the skills. We want to help those folks convert those skills into from the legacy to the legal market, make sure that we're using our network to connect them to folks that can help them flesh out their business model, help them with access to capital, with packaging. And so there's just a number of things that our entrepreneurship arm does with just our internal network that we have at Marijuana Matters. So those are some of the things. If few examples of some of the work that we do.
That's great work. I love it. And it is very important. The last portion of what you were saying really resonated with me, you know, helping people from the legacy market kind of convert to the regular market. I think it's very important. Many of them are people of color. And we're not really able to realize the potential of building legacy wealth along with their legacy entrepreneurship and already very creative ideas and skill level. So I think that's a great bridge work there to really bring them to a market that could potentially bring wealth for their family for years to come. Michael, kind of the same question. Talk to me about the SEED program and how it aims to possibly impact the social equity community.
Yeah, so I mentioned before that the SEED program really puts forth programming under 3 pillars, the social justice pillar, the community business incubator, and education and workforce development. So with respect to our social justice pillar, we really focus on the interaction with the criminal justice system. I think overall, when we think about social equity, the conversations that I'm having with my teammates is that the social equity issue is really about the intersection of racial and economic justice. And so how do we look at all 3 of those pillars and put them together so that somebody can walk away from a program or an interaction with the SEED initiative and feel like they have something that's concrete that they can use in the cannabis industry, if that's, where they, if that's where their passions and interests lie, or they can also use it, in other business ventures or in other ways that can improve their quality of life. So with respect to the social justice pillar, we're focusing on helping people expunge their records. We're, interested in getting into the areas of clemency and pardoning. But really, as I said before, we really don't want to focus on just you can get your record expunged so you can be in the cannabis industry. We want to help you, give you the resources and tools to expunge your record because the war on drugs disproportionately impacted you. And you shouldn't have to be pigeonholed into the cannabis industry because this is what was on your criminal record. We want to, you were disenfranchised. How can we be restorative to you? How can we help the system be restorative to you since you were treated so unfairly? And so that's where we're at now. Right now, we're working with Cabrini Green Legal Aid, which is a statewide organization here in Illinois that provides pro bono legal assistance. And so they are our partners towards the avenue of helping people expunge their records. Right now with COVID-19, having a whole bunch of people in the room with a whole bunch of lawyers and, starting to file the paperwork to get their record expunged is not ideal right now, particularly in Illinois as our numbers are rising. So what we're doing right now is assisting with folks getting their rap sheets. And so, particularly with the recent uprisings all over the country, it may not be ideal for you, to walk into the Chicago Police Department and ask for a copy of your criminal record, particularly if you don't know what's on it, if things haven't been resolved. So we're working with Cabrini Green Legal Aid so that people can come and get their fingerprints. We're paying for people to get their fingerprints so then they can have their rap sheet mailed to them and work with the lawyers at Cabrini Green Legal Aid. And so we're doing that for 1,000 people between now and the end of the year. There are certainly challenges to that. We were just discussing this yesterday because there is such a backlog of people, waiting to have their records expunged. And then, we'll provide you with your rap sheet. You're working with Cabrini Green Legal Aid to get your petition filed, and then you're waiting. You're waiting 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, who knows now with COVID-19 thrown into the mix. So I think that's where the advocacy piece also comes in, is really talking to our legislature, the people who are making the policies and laws about, what more can we be doing to have some of these records expunged electronically or automatically. I know those things are in play right now in Illinois, but what more can we be doing and help speed up this process for folks? And then with respect to the incubator, we've held 2 phase 1 incubators at this point here specifically in Illinois. And that's been for the dispensary applications in Illinois and for the craft grow or the cultivation licenses here in Illinois. And it's open to only people that will qualify as a social equity applicant by the state of Illinois guidelines. And so we provided an opportunity for about 50 businesses to be exposed to Cresco Lab subject matter experts. So if you're in the dispensary incubator, you need to talk to our retail staff on how you're writing your business plan and how you're addressing the questions on the application about, you know, your retail store, our security experts, our IT experts, HR, government affairs, community integration. All of those people played a part in helping social equity applicants develop their business plan and address the questions on the application. But our legal team, the team who writes the Cresco's applications for dispensaries and cultivation facilities, really did the heavy lifting there and worked with the incubatees with writing their application and really providing that technical assistance on how does the application need to look, you know, what types of things do you need to include? And then providing feedback as people wrote different exhibits, they provided feedback, and it was an iterative process until the application was due. And then we also provided the application fee to the state of Illinois on behalf of those social equity applicants. So as I said, it was about 50 businesses and it was close to 200 people that, you know, that made up those businesses. And then for education and workforce development, one of my colleagues who has been in the industry for quite a while now and has specific expertise in the horticulture field and has worked to stand up our cultivation facilities is working with colleges and universities to write and expand cannabis curricula, and also where possible provide that connection for people who've taken classes or earned their cannabis certificate to, you know, be connected to our recruitment team to see if there are any opportunities available at Cresco. So now that they've had the opportunity to get some academic experience, now they're looking for that hands-on experience. And so it'd be great if we could give them that, you know, and make sure that they are paid, you know, for their efforts. In the future, we're looking to really close a loop on all three of those pillars. And so at any point, you know, if you interact with the SEED initiative at any point on that continuum of those three pillars, you could, for example, have your record expunged by working through our partnership with Cabrini Green Legal Aid, maybe work at Cresco or have an internship or fellowship at Cresco to be able to engage with professionals who are, you know, in the plant touching business, and then, you know, be in our incubator or application writing classes so that, you know, if you do decide that you want to be an entrepreneur in the cannabis industry, you know, you now have the concrete tools to write that application and be successful at it. And if not, if you find at any point that you don't want to be involved in the cannabis industry, you still have education, you still have knowledge about how to write an application, how to respond to a state inquiry or RFP, your record is still expunged, or you still have your rap sheet, so you're still on the path to have your record expunged. So I think it's really important to not give it lip service and not to say, okay, well, we did this, you know, we did this phase 1 incubator, you didn't get a license, so sorry, better luck next time. No, going forward, we want to say, okay, maybe you didn't get a license, or maybe you decided you didn't want to apply, but now you know how to go and get involved in a business in which you need a license from the state of Illinois or the state of Pennsylvania. So that's where we want to move towards. And so we're making plans and strategizing right now to move towards that in 2021.
Very, very wonderful. I love the holistic approach, because you know, anyone can tell someone the pathway, but it's another thing to lead someone down the path and then give them the skills to continue the journey on their own. That is so important. And it looks like you guys are making great strides in helping in that manner. So that is definitely commendable. Roz, we've heard about your passion and where your advocacy led you to move forward in your business. So yeah, let us know a little bit more about what's the meat and potatoes. We want all the skinny.
Yeah, what do I do, right? Exactly. What do you do on a daily basis? Well, First and foremost, to my fellow panelists, just the work and the body work that you do is clearly important and needed and necessary for someone that's been around since 2016. When I first came into the industry and looking at doing this, there were not seed programs, there were not marijuana matters, it was a few of us, and we were trying to figure out, and we were not working in sync together. So the first thing that I've been trying to do as a advocacy organization is when we see new people entering and bringing their expertise and bringing their resources and bringing their passion, is to figure out how do we work together, because it is for the same common good. Everything that you guys talked about is exactly what we focus on as an organization. We don't have to be siloed. We don't have to have anyone try to play us against one another, that we work together to make things work. So what we do as an organization is normalize cannabis for our community. I am a 50-year-old woman who cannabis was not normal in my community, was not normal with my family, was not normal with my grandparents. It was not normal. And what we realized as an organization was that we had generation gaps, that some generations it was very normal, others it was not normal, and there would need to be a gap in connecting these generations together and the information together. So M4MM, as I mentioned before, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have 27 chapters. We have 2 HBCU chapters with FAMU Law School, as well as Southern Law School. And then we have 3 international chapters, one in the UK, one in Toronto, and one in Jamaica. And so the body of work really, it stretches depending on where we are. But I want to highlight some of the things that are really most close to my heart. And the fact that we currently produce on a weekly basis, or I should say weekly and monthly, we have 4 different podcasts that we produce. My goal was not to be, hey, Roz is doing this, Roz is doing this. My goal was to create leaders that were able to go into their city and go into their state and be able to hold up and have a organization that you felt comfortable in, that gave you support, that was an umbrella. Because again, I named it very specifically, minorities for medical marijuana. I didn't want people to try to figure out the name. I didn't want them to try to figure out, well, what does it mean? It gave them a cachet to say, listen, I want to learn more. I want to get connected and feel comfortable. Because y'all know, in our community, trust, if we don't trust you, if there is not a connection, if there's not something that draws me to you or what have you, sometimes that opportunity of engagement and conversation doesn't happen. And so with that being said, we produce weekly, I guess when we talk about what do we do, it's advocacy, outreach, education, and training. So the advocacy is that policy side, having policy writers, myself, along with our team, to work with senators and with legislators. Literally in my phone, I sacred, because I have our Black caucus leaders that I text, listen, I need to talk to you. Listen, this is happening. And to be honest with you, they want to be engaged. They just don't know exactly what's happening. We are the subject matter experts. We have to push them to say, hey, listen, I need your influence. Shout out to the folks in New York, because when New York wanted to go legal, the Black caucus leaders was like, listen, if you don't have social equity, we ain't voting for it. And that was because of advocates saying, listen, they trying to pull the bamboozle, don't go for it. And they knew that they didn't know about social equity. It was advocacy folks coming in. And so that advocacy piece is so critical to us. And our outreach for us is critical. So we have 3 shows. I do Can I Talk with Roz, that's broadcast live every Friday at 1:00. The 22nd of every month, we have Leo Bridgewater, who is our national veteran outreach manager, director rather. He does an Eagle 22 that allows takes 2 minutes of silence, and he goes live and then talks about just the opportunities of veterans to connect with the medicine. We're very medical focused as an organization. And we feel like, especially our Black veterans, making sure they have a connection to understanding what their options are and how to find information and how to get connected. So super proud of that. We have Simone Kaysen in Michigan. She does a show on a monthly basis called Cash It Out on Cannabis. Because guess what? People are trying to figure out, I don't want to do a business. I don't want to do, I want to figure out, how do I look at this as a stock perspective? I want to be an investor. So she does a show that's under the M4MM banner, Cashing Out with Cannabis. We also have a hemp webinar every month called Sow the Land Hemp Webinar. We are very intentional about making sure that our Black farmers have an opportunity not only to cultivate. So we have a farming network of 10 these are 10 farming networks from California all the way to Pennsylvania, down to Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, where these farming networks work together and figure out, how do we cultivate together? How do we buy from one another? How do we create economies of scales when it comes to buying products or buying seeds or sharing of information? And so we do a monthly show called Sow the Land Hemp Webinar that is, I mean, it's awesome. It gives you, for me, from my perspective, I want to give individuals a chance to have, I have these really cool conversations and really great conversations that really is just simple. They're specific to me. And I'm like, enough of that crap. You can talk to me all day long. I need you to be talking to everybody else. So before there was COVID-19 and before there was Zoom and all the popularity, a year and a half ago, we were doing webinars where we get, hey, we got this guest coming on. They're going to talk about this subject. We need you guys to jump on. And I'm going to tell you something. There's hundreds of businesses that have jumped on over the years and have benefited. They know how to buy their seeds. They know how to get their drying equipment. They know how to extraction process. Now they know how to go to the market with their product. And so those are some of the key things. We believe in economic empowerment from the community-based, touching the community, asking you, what do you need? And then being able to deliver it. So the last thing that we just did that was near and dear to my heart from a social justice perspective, we have in-person expungement clinics. And we just did one in Maryland with, we partnered with Vireo Health and partnered with Marion, Maine, which is a Black-owned dispensary. And let me tell you something, we as an organization, we buy Black, we support Black, we find, if you or someone Black that's in the industry, we go find you, we go, okay, we need to bring, highlight you. And I ain't scared about it. I don't apologize for it. I do it because it's the right thing to do. And we, if I could just tell you guys, we followed safe protocols. We were COVID safe. Marion, Maine is a beautiful facility owned by Hope Wiseman and her family in Maryland. It's a dispensary that has a dispensary on one level and it has education classrooms on the second level. And we literally had attorneys that volunteered their time. Shout out to Prince George County, Maryland, and the state attorney there. And literally, we changed 45 lives that day. All Black folks that had some type of criminality, something that was marijuana specific on their record, that walked in with it on their record and walked out with it off their record. And that was intentionality, and we did it safely. We're able to get them, answer their questions for them. And so we're looking at ways with COVID and knowing, and I hear you, Michael, because I'm with you trying to figure out how do we do this, but also we as advocates, we want execution. We want to execute right now, and we know with COVID it's so hard. And so we're looking at how do we duplicate that. And one of the best ways, and if anyone's listening right now in your state, the best way that we can help do this, instead of having expungement clinics, having our executive level, our governor or the legislators put a, automatic expungement for a, if it's a certain amount of, if it's possession, because we don't have to have a clinic. You just have a system where you can go in and basically say, hey, listen, if this is on my record, we want to apply for that. So that's just a little taste. I could go on about some of the things that we do from a programmatic standpoint, but those are things that are near and dear to my heart. Our goal is to partner with the Crescos of the world, the Vireos of the world, the Soteras, all these large, multi-state operators who they're looking at saying, how do we duplicate this in this state? We need a partner who will work with us. And that's what we are. We are that partner. And so, it's just, I'm with you, Michael. I got you. I'm right here. So that's kind of what we do on top of a whole bunch of other stuff. But, it gives you a nice little snippet.
And what a wonderful snippet it was. It was more than a snippet. It was
I can talk, girl.
Amen to that work for sure. And the fact that we're here together, you guys can connect, is really what it's all about. I love the aspect that you unapologetically serve your people. Why should we not? And sometimes, and I'll say slightly controversially that we are, you know, in a corner as to when we want to support ourselves and support each other within our Black community. We're deemed as though we're being one-sided racist, and that can pose quite a challenge. And I like to see when people are overcoming that challenge with no apology. I know that's the way I operate with intention in that way as well. With Vanguard, I tell stories.
I'm gonna tell you something real quick, a real quick story. When I first got into the industry, I reached out to a cannabis publication that's online, and I think they're in print, but they're online, huge business network. And I said, hey, you know, I explained what we do. I said, minority focus, whatever. And literally they were like, well, we already work with this group. And so you might need to go talk to them. And then you guys figure it out. And then you're not going to tear us apart, that we have a mission, and it is our responsibility. Someone else, it might be, well, I'm an ally and I support you. But for me as a Black woman, it is my responsibility, if I'm in this industry, to figure out how do we rewrite some of the issues that we know that are happening right now in this industry.
And in the spirit of, you know, that in that vein, I want to make sure that we walk away from this conversation knowing, you know, what everyone's doing. You know, Roz, I'd love to get the info about your podcast schedule, or, you know, where to go to on your website, and share that with our viewers so that not only can we support each other on this panel, but also so that our viewers know how they can support a lot of the education and training that we're offering.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to talk about that a little bit, like, you know, Courtney, you're exactly inside my head, because I'm thinking, you know, first of all, I want to be able to connect the people that we're working with in the community that want to learn more about cannabis. You know, it's wonderful that we are working with a whole bunch of subject matter experts that, you know, up until COVID-19, I could reach out and touch them, you know. But you know, I think the way I felt, I would think it's safe to say that maybe some of our program participants have felt the same way. I'm, you know, relatively new to the industry. I've been in the industry for a year, and there's so much I need to learn, and I need to learn it yesterday because I'm trying to provide those resources to other people. And, you know, I remember I had 2 weeks between, you know, one job and starting in the cannabis industry, and I'm signing up for all these podcasts, and I need to listen to this and I need to learn. And I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't, you know, I'm like, that's nice, but I don't even know what they're talking about, you know. So it's like, now when you talked about, you know, everybody's talking about their podcast, I'm like, these are the podcasts I need to be listening to. This is how I'm going to learn a little bit more in depth about the industry. And so I feel like, you know, connecting the folks that we're working with, I think that's a huge resource. So it's like, you know, I'm learning too, you know, so let me learn along with, you know, the folks that, you know, that we're all together in this.
Me too. And me too. I mean, it's the same thing. I'm learning as well. And like you guys have brought along points that are so critical. So we're in this together. So again, didn't mean to steal your flow, Tiffany, but I had to say that because the more that we stay linked together, the better. And it will help us to deliver and to do the things that we really want to do that are so important.
Yes, indeed. And the flow is not mine. The flow belongs to this panel. So, you know, with that said, we're talking about the things that are positive, the things that bridge together, the things that kind of, you know, do the expertise as to what's really going on out there. I know with my work, I have to share the stories of women across the country who I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I put it out there just like that because the stories need to be told and not suppressed. A lot of media outlets are afraid to tell the ugly because it can reflect poorly to your viewership. I don't worry about that. I too am unapologetic. And with that, let's talk about some of the challenges that come with doing this level of work, because they are good and plenty and can be insurmountable in kind of regards of how we view our success. So starting with Courtney, let's talk about some of the challenges that you've encountered while trying to uplift and kind of nurture the social equity community.
Yeah, some of those challenges in particular for cannabis are, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of the re-education. Um, One example I have is that we've really been trying to engage the faith community, because the faith community is often a pillar in African American communities. You know, their long-standing tradition of civil rights and restorative justice, and kind of wanting to have the church take a larger role in the restorative justice portion of this industry. But some of the faith leaders literally can't get past the word weed, or I mean, when I talk to faith leaders, they're like, weed in church, you shouldn't make us choose a moral or ethic issue over the civil rights of the issue. And so really just trying to re-educate some of these community leaders and letting them know that this is not about people getting high. And like Michael mentioned earlier, once some of these individuals that have had negative impacts with the criminalization of marijuana, once we're able to, repair the harms that are done to their records, I mean, they have an opportunity to essentially work in whatever industry they want. I mean, going through RFP process that's a skill. I mean, that's something that that's invaluable, that you'll be able to take with you wherever you go, if it's cannabis related or not. And so that's some of the hard work, is just getting over the hump and really convincing folks that this is not about just flooding your community with cannabis stores and you're going to smell weed everywhere. Although that is, part of it, but there's way more than just, there are a lot of ways to ingest cannabis other than smoking. And so just really understanding even that aspect, that, it's not gonna be what you think it might be. Some of the other issues, from the business perspective, is companies worrying about their bottom lines, profits versus people. And so, a lot of folks want to talk a lot about social equity, but everyone's like, the argument can be made that we should only be focusing on things like safe banking, because that's an issue that also will help social equity operators have more access to capital. And I think that although that may be true, I don't want to lose the momentum that we have in grounding all of our conversations around social equity. And so, yes, banking and cannabis is very important. We also want to make sure that we're talking about expungement and restorative justice, and making sure that we're able to have these conversations in tandem. We don't have to wait for safe banking in order to talk about the MORE Act, or in order to implement any of the policies that are in those bills. And so those are some of the challenges that me and my organization have faced in just kind of in this advocacy world.
I completely understand. You make a great point that everyone, we in cannabis, we do focus on some of the large issues like safe banking, but it cannot negate from the progress that we need to make in making sure that Black and brown people have a fair chance at getting a fresh start. And that the big elephant that looms in the room is that no one should be sitting in a jail cell or an issue getting a job because of a joint or pre-roll that you can buy in a store in America. That is just unfair. So the two, to me, are apples and oranges. When people try to approach me with that mindset, I think we need to work on both, and great attention to detail needs to be given to both. So I completely understand that point of view. The SEED program, it launched in 2019. Talk to me about some of the accomplishments versus the challenges that you have faced.
Ooh, the challenges are many, and it's you think about it. It's hard to think about the accomplishments because you're in it, and you're doing it every day. And then when you describe what you're doing and you see people's reactions, like, oh, I guess we are doing a few things. But I think some of our accomplishments have really been, in the breadth of our work. The overall goal of SEED is really to be able to measure outcomes of people and businesses and communities. That's where we be able to, that's when I feel like I can exhale and like, okay, I've really done something here. Someone has, gone through our program and opened a dispensary, and now they've created generational wealth for their their families and their descendants. That'll be awesome. And, they stood up a nonprofit in their community. I mean, I think that's the ideal, and that's where we want to be right now, as we're building and revising and refining our programming. I think our main success has been able to get into communities and start building relationships and working with a large number of people. As I mentioned, our community business incubator, we were working with about 50 businesses, which was a couple hundred people in all of those businesses. With our expungement work last year, I think we worked with organizations across the country, and we were able to help 1,200 people just since, and when I say year, I mean kind of, May 2019 to May 2020. So since June of 2020, as I mentioned, with our partnership with Cabrini Green Legal Aid, we're on track to work with 1,000 people just in the first half of this year. So, if we, continue on the same track, we'll be able to touch many more lives than we touched last year. And then also, being able to provide the information to colleges and universities that, is so coveted, just being able to give people that insight and opportunity so that they can see whether this is an opportunity that they want to take advantage of, I think is huge. The challenges, I think we all know, the significant challenges of working in an industry that is built on, is I don't know what to say here. I'm trying to be nice. That has the potential to perpetuate injustice.
Tell me exactly how it is. I'm sorry, but I know you. Listen, I know you work in the corporate environment. So again, baby, let me. So Michael, hold on. Let me pull it back a little bit, because I put that corporate in. I got you.
Right.
So you just whisper what you really want to say, and I'll say it for you, and you say it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks, sis.
That you're trying to say. I understand what we get it.
Yes.
But yeah.
So, I mean, I think the industry has the potential, if we don't stop it right now, if we don't put checks and balances in place, the industry has the potential to significantly perpetuate injustice. That's the path that we're on right now. That's the overall challenge. And I think watching like the social equity process in Illinois unfold, I'm sitting at these events and watching people get information, and everyone's excited. And I feel like there is so much information. There's networks and resources and just access that Black and Brown people don't have, and so how can we provide that? How can we, how can Cresco provide that? How can the cannabis industry provide that? And I see that as really the biggest challenge. The states are doing, what they can do with respect to putting in social equity provisions and not passing adult use bills until that is in there. But by nature of politics, by nature of lawmaking, it's not going to be perfect. So how do we as multi-state operators fill that gap? And fill that gap, again, like I was saying, about things that are concrete, not just giving it lip service, not just saying, okay, well, we paid your application fee, so, you can give us a pat on the back. We're doing our work. No, how can we make sure that once a Black or Brown business owner gets a license, as hard as the application process is, that was easy compared to going from license to operations and staying open in a highly regulated market. How do we do that, without the resources of Cresco? If I'm out there, I'm a small business owner, one fine could wipe me out. How do we make sure that we set expectations for the Black and Brown community, and then provide them the access, the knowledge, the resources, so that they don't get wiped out by one fine, or they don't become jaded by the industry because it sounded good, but once I got in it, I realized it was so much more to it. And for me, I think that's where I'm grappling with, trying to, you know, create strategy that really deals with that in a way that's tangible, and not, you know, being able to, you know, write a nice report and come and do conferences and say, this is what we've done. I really want to, you know, folks to be able to say, I interacted with the Cresco Lab Seed program, and this is how, these are the resources that I was given, and this is how I'm using that for myself and my family and my community.
Very good. I mean, I think that through the work that you're describing, through your ideas and through the way that you intend to strategize, you're answering your own question. You're doing the work that needs to be done and duplicated across the country in order for people to understand that advocacy is necessary. Seats at the table are not only needed, welcome, but they are mandatory for Black and Brown people. And then just changing the idea that there's this separation. You know, I say oftentimes, you know, we've had many industries in America. And with these industries, there's the same pattern for all of them. Women and people of color take a back burner in idea creation, cultivation, sales, every aspect of it. And we need not let that happen with this new burgeoning industry. As our community of cannabis has become an industry, we are mirroring the same model that was set forth by all the other industries, which is just it's exclusion and it's discrimination. And it's just a complete shutout of complete idea from everyone. So I think that, you know, all the work that you're intending to do and trying to strategize for is definitely what's needed in order to bring that that equity that we're really truly looking for. And it comes in, you know, we call it social equity, but it comes in many different ways. And we're just, you know, waiting to see it. We as people of color are just waiting to see people jump on board. Roz, tell me, you know, about your challenges. We're talking challenges now. What have you been met with?
Yeah, I mean, I would think from an organization standpoint, you know, there's several, but I kind of, as the ladies were talking, I kind of put it in 4 different buckets. And bucket number 1 is really a challenge that not only for our organization, but I think for the industry, is defining and understanding social equity and all of its intricacies, and setting the expectation. And that's when Michael said expectation, I'd already put down like setting the expectation of like what, you know, in regards to what it means. I think there's so many different definitions of social equity. And I think we get some of our allies who want to tell us what it is. And so we going through that challenge of every day, it changes a little bit, but, you know, setting that, and then being able to, you know, again, execute on the definition of and what we're trying to get done. For me as a nonprofit, is funding. I have programs, like my mind creates like no other. I can create something. That's why I don't worry about people like, well, you don't worry about sharing your ideas. No, my gift has always been the gift of creativity and ideation. And so with creativity and ideation, you can have lots of creativity, lots of ideas, lots of things that you want to execute, but it takes people power, it takes resources. And for us as a nonprofit, we are always looking at where are those resources going to come from? How do we, how do we give value to our corporate partners so that they see that if they are being a corporate partner and getting funding, that you're not going to tell me how I use that funding, but let me show you the value that it brings to you for you to support what we're doing. And I have to articulate that and bring it together, and sometimes have to kind of be very pointed about the fact that this is my organization. This is not, and this is how we have things set up, but we have to work together. So that funding piece, and that's going to change as we normalize, as when cannabis is legalized federally. Some of those opportunities are going to expand and they're going to change, and it's going to help us from a nonprofit perspective. The next thing was community engagement, and again, normalizing, determining the programs, the education, the expertise, what works, what doesn't work. We know certain things like expungement clinic, that's a no-brainer. But when you're talking about putting on programs that you give access to capital, or you're giving information about, skill development, understanding the application process, we had a boot camp. We came up with a concept in 2019 that we started the CBLB, which is a cannabis licensing business boot camp. And it was, we started in St. Louis. We went from St. Louis to New Jersey. Then from New Jersey, we went to Chicago. And then we did another one in Chicago in 2020. And we just did one virtually online for Massachusetts for the delivery services. And all of it was aimed at helping people of color, social equity business owners, minority-owned business owners to understand how to navigate through that application process. And so with that being said, even trying to determine the ebbs and flows of what the state is looking for is different from Massachusetts and Missouri, how to position yourself, how to build teams, all of that content and all of that strategy, it's a challenge. And you having to get the right people on your team to help you figure out how to deliver the best content to your members and followers. And last thing is, again, people power and execution. Finding really smart people. I can't be the smartest person in the room. I need other smart people along with us. We need people that know how to execute. And I don't know if you're having this, Courtney or Michael, but having people along with you, like we're drivers, but as a driver, it is my responsibility. I will always be the founder for MM. This was birthed from my belly out. I literally on my living room sofa, but I will not always be the CEO. And so being able to identify folks that have the passion, the drive, because it's because what we do as ladies here, it's more than, oh, I'm just helping. It is something that's in your belly. Like you live this, you breathe this. This is a passion of helping other people. And with that being said, you want to find more people that get that I ain't got to sell you on what I'm doing. You just know that it's the right fit for you. And so that's always for us. And as I look at growth, long-term growth, that is something that I'm looking for, the right people to put in the right place to do the right thing at the right time.
Excellent. Excellent. I really believe in the partnerships and the allies, and we can't do it on our own. We may be the founder of whatever it is that we do, or a key player or a top executive, but you don't work alone and you don't operate in a vacuum. So, I want to kind of close us off with the idea of allies. When we ally with individuals and organizations and we partner with that, what does that really mean what does it mean to our communities? What does it mean to our work? And how do we define that? Courtney, let's start with you. How is that defined, both personally and within your business?
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. I think it starts with the goals of your organization and also your mission. Partnerships have to be strategic. For Marijuana Matters, we've had a lot of businesses that obviously would love to partner with a nonprofit that works on social equity, the hot buzz phrase that everyone wants to be a part of. But we have, a corporate social equity pledge that we want individuals to sign on to, stating that you will, these are your intents as a business operator. If you want to work with us, here's what we need from you, that you're operating with intent. And so I think finding organizations and businesses that are aligned with your principles are really important, because there's not a lot of money out there, but there are a lot of folks that will, they'll give you some money to put their logo on your website, and they don't actually want to do any of the work, or they don't believe in the mission, and they're not operating with intent. So I think that, government, community, private industries, we all bear the responsibility in creating an industry that does no harm. And without center-lived experiences, without having individuals on your team, on your board that are diverse, I don't really think that I wouldn't consider that a strategic partnership. And advocacy is definitely a tool to connect all of those groups. to ensure that the industry isn't operating with intent. So I think that, basically having your mission and goals set clear and aligning yourself with other businesses and organizations, and not being afraid to turn down opportunities that seem like they'd be good on the surface, but that's all they are, just surface level.
Understood. Yes, it is important to have in-depth partnerships and to strategize when not everyone is suitable to be your partner, because they are not going to mirror your passion, and their passion within their business is spread out into other directions, and it's just not in alignment. So I agree definitely with having strategic partnerships. Michael, for Cresco, I know that that's slightly different, being a large multi-state operator. So it's kind of two-part for you. What is the importance of allies within Cresco for you? And what advice do you have for those who would like to ally in order just to get the idea of how to, operate a multi-state style business?
Yeah, I think, the idea of allyship working in a multi-state operator is an interesting thought. I think allyship, when I think of it and listening to what Courtney said, I think it's Cresco's responsibility to be the ally here, how, as we are, owned and founded by white men, how do I, as a Black woman, go into the community and demonstrate that? Now, I mean, I am an ally. I think you would know that by talking to me, and understanding my motivations and who I am and what I believe in Seed. But how do I demonstrate for you that Cresco is an ally, and I have the full support and encouragement and, partnership with everyone between me and the CEO and the board, to be an ally. And I think, when I'm out there, saying that, we'd like to partner, we'd like to, have you speak nice about us in the community. By the way, can we use your logo? I mean, all the things you said are dead on. Like, yeah, by the way, can we use your logo on our website to show that, we are doing the right thing? I believe that we need to do all those things. I'm proud to work for Cresco. I'm unapologetic about that. I think the difference is how do we demonstrate that, not just with our dollars, but with our time and with how we show up as professionals of a multi-state operator. So do we just provide the funding for an event or, provide a check to a nonprofit organization? No, we show up, we put up tents, we hand out food bags, we reserve the space, all of those different things to demonstrate our allyship. And I think so on one hand, I think it's Cresco's responsibility to use its privilege and voice and space that we take up in the industry to be an ally, at the legislative table and in communities. But then I also think with respect to allyship, I am the liaison between the community agency, the community organizations, and the community at large, and the corporate structures of Cresco. So how do I make sure that the corporate structures of Cresco know what it means to be an ally? So how do I get them to be an ally to me so Cresco can be an ally to the community, and I think that definitely has its own challenges, because we exist in the world and we're all people that are a sum of our experiences. And so when we talk about the challenges of injustice in the cannabis industry, I think people at Cresco know that and really believe that there is something that needs to be done about that. But I think the challenge then is to educate them on what needs to be done and how do we do it in a way that does demonstrate that we want to be allies and not just be, a corporate social, this is not our corporate social responsibility. Those two things are very different. You know, I'm wearing a Seed t-shirt. Our marketing team has worked to develop a Seed logo that's separate from Cresco's logo. And that's a reason. We're not, you know, we're not just here as an arm of Cresco to say, hey, you know, this is our civic, you know, our civic duty as a corporate organization. No, this is how we want to come to the communities from the perspective of the community. Corporate social responsibility is about making Cresco look good. And Cresco has that. You know, I don't work in corporate social responsibility. You know, I work in social equity. And social equity really means going to the community and asking, what is it that you need? How can we be an ally? And then putting our time and our dollars behind that, as opposed to, we want to give you money to do what we want you to do. I think that's just perpetuating the nonprofit industrial complex.
100%.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it really did. It answered the question, and it shed light on the difference between tokenism and doing real work. Because taking and just going, here's what we'd like for you to do with this set of dollars we've given you, is tokenizing the situation, the person involved, and having a person such as yourself to bridge that gap between community and corporate. People can have a fair understanding of what's going on from when they ask for help until it's received, I think is essential to the partnerships and allyships that we're all looking for, is not to feel like we've been tokenized. So I think that's absolutely wonderful work, and that did answer the question. Roz, it's back to you. This was within originally your fourth bucket. Expand on your fourth bucket there. Talk to me about what partnerships and allies mean within your organization.
Yeah, first a shout out to Michael and you know, and of course with Courtney, but Michael, man, for you having only a year in, you really have nailed down you know, some of the complexity of the work that we do, and really have a good grasp of just, I mean, and I shouldn't say, because you've been doing this before, so it ain't like it's rocket science. It kind of transitions from cannabis, but you really nailed down, in my estimation, especially on the allyship, because I tell people, when you start an organization, if it's an advocacy and outreach, and specifically about this topic and in this industry, you cannot do this alone. And if it were not for allies that I've been able to connect with over the years, there was a gentleman by the name of Bill Monroe, and Bill Monroe passed away last year. It's been about a year now. Bill was a 6'3" white guy, very strong in the cannabis industry in Florida, very influential, knew everything in regards to cultivation. He was just a pioneer in the state of Florida. There was nothing that I couldn't call Bill on to ask him about or to get information, because guess what? I didn't know it all. And not only was he free with his information and expertise, but he was free with his relationships, with his, you know, with his time, you know, and he realized that he had some privileges that I did not have. And so I think allyship is so critical, that we as especially Black-centric nonprofits in this space, if you turn your head away from people that don't look like you, who want to help you, you might do yourself a disservice. Because there are folks that do not look like us that they empathize, but also have resources that are willing to help and willing to support the work that we're trying to do, and own up to the fact that they may not know it all, but use me, tap into me. How can I help the cause? And you know, it's funny because there's a fine line, because you get some allies that are great and they understand where to sit themselves, and then you get some that kind of cross over and again insinuate themselves or try to tell me or tell my story. No one can tell my story better than I can tell my story, right? And so that's where I have to do the education to that ally to say, hold yourself for a second. Let me tell you what I need. You don't tell me what you think I need. I know what I need. I know what's happening right now. I know what resources, I know what the issue is. So I think communication is so key, and tolerance and patience. So if you're someone out there with a nonprofit and you connect with someone and you're like, oh my gosh, like, have a little patience. You figure out how you can create communication that supports, that creates understanding, that supports your mission, and then being able to push it out from there. But for me, I really appreciate, Michael, your perspective on the role of an MSO. And that's when I spoke about before, showing my value. Like sometimes I feel like as a nonprofit, we have to go the extra mile to show why we can make a difference versus that MSO saying, hey, we see the work you're doing. How can we help and support you? And sometimes it's not money. Sometimes it's resources they already have. Like there's some groups and there's some white nonprofit cannabis organizations that I know spent $1.5 million in lobbying dollars at the federal level for the Safe Banking Act. How about ask us or spend some of that towards the MORE Act, or how about tap into us and find out what are the issues that we want to address at the federal level and utilize some of those dollars to help us on that level. So there's many ways that you can make that work. And I say to those organizations out there that there are folks that really want to help us, that want to be allies, that sometimes need to be taught on how to be a good ally, but be patient, walk the course, stay the course, and I think we can come out really good on the other side.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I agree, great points made there. Well, this is going to conclude our time together on the panel. I'm going to invite Tahir to come back and just kind of join us with some closing words. But thank you, ladies, very much for spending time with me today. Very enlightening and wonderful to meet you. Hi, Tahir.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tiffany.
yeah, and I just have to say thank you so much to Tiffany for doing such an amazing job moderating this panel. For me, it's amazing to see such beautiful, strong Black women leading the cannabis industry and everything you're doing. I'm thankful for each and every one of you. You all have been inspirational to me and my work that I do. And I'm also so happy that I could be the person to connect you all, because you all can be great resources for each other. When we talk about advocacy, I think Roz hit it on the head. It's not about us being divided, because we all know that when we're stronger together. And it's a pleasure to be able to have you ladies share your expertise with everybody, to be able to learn. I think this is probably one of the most important panels in this whole conference. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in with us for another episode of Catalyst Conversations. And we'll be looking forward to bringing you more education. Y'all have a good day.